Hello guys, welcome back to another edition of Meet the Germans. So this will be part two. So this time I've got another 4 suggestions that have been sent to me. So I'm going to look at these ones and do a reaction. If you like the videos, please like. If you don't like them, put a dislike as well. Either way, I don't mind. And if you have nothing else to do, press the subscribe button and you can help me grow my channel. Costs you nothing and helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. So let's have a look at our first one. I said in my last video that I really like this presenter. I think she's really great. Her English is great, her German's great, and her videos are really entertaining. So let's have a look at this one. Is German music, and what's it called? Schlager and Deutschrap.
For me, German music is a little like German wine. I was surprised at how good some of it is. Some of it is definitely an acquired taste, and I didn't know anything about it until I moved here. So today is going to be a bit of a musical wine tasting session. We've got to kick things off with the sweetest thing on offer, Schlager. The word Schlager means hit, reflecting the commercial nature of this style. A Schlager song usually has simple, uncontroversial lyrics, a catchy tune, and energetic performers with big smiles. While the genre had its heyday back in the 70s, it's still big business today. Just ask Queen of Schlager Helene Fischer, whose catchy, clubby tunes made her one of the highest paid women in music worldwide. Ready to meet some Schlager performers?
Sounds like American country music to me. Sounds like Roxette. But you can see it's catchy.
Ich komme aus Schweden ursprünglich und bin seit 15 Jahren in Köln, Deutschland.
Und ich komme aus Louisville, Kentucky und ich bin fast 20 Jahre in Deutschland. German Schlager music is a lot like country music, I think, because in every Schlager song there's a story, there's something to be said, it's easy, it's identifiable, it's relatable, and there's heart to it.
Whatever the song is about.
So guys, you speak German. Do you notice, like, when that man is speaking in German, does that accent also come through? So that's a particularly American accent to me. But I didn't notice anything when he was speaking German. So does he lose his accent when he speaks German, or does he keep it?
If it's happiness or sad or whatever, you want people to feel it.
I think Germans need Schlager music. They need it as the break from the day-to-day norm.
That's the thing with Germans, like they can seem very closed off and calm, but when they listen to their favorite Schlager song, it's like Carnival in Cologne, it's craziness.
And again there, so I didn't notice any accent when she was speaking German, but she's Swedish. But Swedish people have a very good English accent, and it's very neutral. So yeah, can leave a comment if you can notice it when she's speaking Deutsch.
And it's the same thing on Schlager events.
You have to be a character to be in the Schlager scene, and you have to like it. You know, we love it. We love it.
Making money,
This
that's
one
why.
is dark, earthy, a bit gritty. It must be time for German rock.
Rammstein.
Rock accounted for nearly 20% of music revenue in Germany in 2020, and the country hosts several major rock festivals, including Wacken, a heavy metal extravaganza that takes over the small, unassuming northern village of the same name for a weekend each year. Acts like the Scorpions, Blind Guardian and Doro are huge on the global rock metal scene. And even non-connoisseurs like me have heard of one of Germany's most successful rock exports, Rammstein. They go big on style and staging, and they've caused a stir many times over with controversial lyrics, outfits and videos.
So Rammstein's very well known everywhere. Okay, so the first impression of Rammstein was, wow, what the hell is going on? But their music is actually quite good. So a lot of these heavy metal bands from all over the world, like Metallica and Rammstein, those sorts of bands, they start off punchy, but when you get into their music, it's actually quite decent music. They're very good musicians. They're good songwriters. Yeah, they don't get enough credit in the world of music.
Not all the wine in my selection is German. Of course, you'll hear a lot of English language music here. By the 90s, only 20% of chart hits in Germany were German. But that trend has reversed in recent years. In 2020, more than 60% of all top 100 singles were homegrown productions. Now I think it's time for some fizz. If champagne is a symbol for hip-hop, then German Sekt can only mean one thing: Deutschrap.
Geez, that must be a mouthful. So in English, rap is hard enough, let alone in German. In the Philippines, they have Filipino rap too, and all you end up hearing is ba 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 ha ha ba na 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 ba 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 ba. So I can imagine that German rap must be an absolute mouthful.
That's right, there's a whole genre specifically called German rap or German hip-hop. This ranges from the poppier 90s pioneers, Die Fantastischen
The Fantastic Four, the Fantastic Vier.
Vier, all the way to the current king of Deutschrap, Capital Bra. He landed 13 #1 hits in Germany in just 1 year.
There's auto-tune galore.
And accusations of sexist or misogynist lyrics. But it is one of the most popular genres right now, especially among younger Germans. Many successful Deutschrap artists have multicultural backgrounds. They mix German lyrics with Turkish, Arabic or Russian. And they address issues such as racism and integration in their tracks. Whew, I need a break from the wine. Ah yes, this'll do nicely. A caffeine-packed soft drink that's all the rage among clubbers. Which brings us swiftly on to techno.
Doof, 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 doof.
Even though this type of music has by now hit the mainstream with dedicated clubs and festivals across Germany, there's still an edge of the original underground scene with industrial warehouse.
There used to be an ad in Australia, I think it was for a telephone company or something like that, and there was an Asian young girl who was introducing her new boyfriend to her grandparents, and I think they were Vietnamese, and they said in Vietnamese, "What's his job? Is he a doctor? Is he a scientist? What is he a math teacher? What does he do?" And she turns to him and goes, "What's your job?" And he just goes, "Doof, doof."
House locations and a general anti-establishment attitude. Sven Väth, Moderat, Monika Kruse, Marusha, Paul van Dyk. The list of German techno stars is long.
Actually, one of my subscribers actually does this for a living, so I'll leave a link in the video, and I'll also, when I edit this video, I'll put up his YouTube channel. So make sure you go and have a look at it and click on him, like and subscribe, and also give him a thumbs up.
Okay, back to the wine. This one says, made in Jamaica, bottled in Germany. Yep, I kid you not. German reggae is a thing. Big names include Gentleman, Sebastian Sturm, Seed and Jan Delay. And my hometown Cologne hosts Europe's biggest reggae festival, the Summer Jam. Finally, here's a vintage bottle. You know when you're at a house party or a wedding or whatever, and it reaches that point in the night where someone sticks on the nostalgia playlist? Well, it can be pretty awkward being the only person who doesn't know the words. So here are 5 German classics to get you started. Scorpions' Wind of Change.
Die Melodie liegt einem direkt im Kopf.
Okay, so that's an extremely famous song. Okay, all around the world, that's known everywhere, and particularly to do with the fall of the Berlin Wall. But yeah, na na na, na na na.
La 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 la, wind of change.
The Scorpions have been performing for more than 50 years and have sold millions of records worldwide. Their 1990 hit Wind of Change became an anthem for German reunification. Kraftwerk das Model.
Na 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 na.
Sie ist ein Model und sie sieht gut aus, ne?
Dubbed the Beatles of electronic music by the New York Times, there's no doubt that the Deadpan Quartet from Dusseldorf were pioneers in their field.
I don't know that one. I'm sure if I heard the song I'd probably know it. But yeah, I don't know that off heart. But this kind of electronica in the early 80s, yeah, I can remember that sort of music.
Nena 99 Luftballons.
Ja, klar.
99 Love Balloons. Yeah, so that was a big hit when I was a teenager.
Etwas Zeit für mich, singe ich ein Lied für dich. 99 Luftballons.
Auf ihrem Weg zum Horizont.
When that came out in Australia, we actually thought she was French because we'd never heard German before, so we actually thought she was French, and for a couple of years until Molly Meldrum did an interview with her, and he used to have this big show at 6 o'clock on Sundays called Countdown, and yeah, she interviewed her and we found out that she was German, but up until then we thought she was French.
This anti-war protest song is a classic example of the Neue Deutsche Welle, or New German Wave music in 1980s West Germany. Die Toten Hosen, alles aus Liebe.
Und alles nur, weil ich dich liebe.
Ja, bestimmt.
Aber
Even though the lyrics basically tell the story of a murder-suicide, this song by the German punk rock legends is sure to get party guests swaying arm in arm on the dance floor and bellowing out the chorus together. Herbert Grönemeyer, Männer.
Männer nehmen den Arm, Männer geben Geborgenheit.
Männer sind bekloppt, Männer sind verrückt.
Wann ist ein
der
Mann?
Mann ein Mann? Wann ist ein Mann ein Mann?
This guy is the biggest selling artist of all time in Germany. In this song, the German crooner digs into the question of masculinity. Was fehlt noch auf dieser Nostalgie-Playliste?
Vielleicht irgendwas von den Ärzten oder sowas in der Richtung?
vielleicht Silbermond, irgendetwas?
Howard Carpendale.
Major Trompen ist immer so ein Klassiker. Westernhagen ist auch mal ganz interessant, ja.
Vielleicht fettes Brot.
Zum Beispiel Karnevalmusik finde ich ganz cool.
Klaus Lage.
Klaus Lage.
1000-mal berührt, 1000-mal ist nichts passiert. 1001 Nacht und das hat
Zoom gemacht.
Zoom gemacht.
Ja.
Of course, there's so
So if you guys have any more that you should have on that list, please put them in the comments. I didn't know those last two songs.
much more to say about German music, so we'll be back with more on Instagram soon. Did any of your favourite German bands or artists not get a mention today? Post them in the comments and tell us why they're worth a listen.
Okay, so that's the first one over and done with, German music. So yeah, that I'd like to hear some Deutsch rap. I think that would be interesting to listen to, particularly just the way that they can get out the words. But yeah, no, that's interesting that there's a good mix of different types of music in Germany. And yeah, but Germany's basically known for hard rock. So let's have a look at our next one. Our next one is LGBTQ. So let's have a look at this one.
I'm proud to live in one of Germany's most queer-friendly cities, Cologne. Around a tenth of the population here identifies as LGBTQI+, and the queer scene is pretty visible. From clubs, bars and cabaret to Europe's first queer sports club.
Okay, so first thing, 10% of Cologne is gay or queer. I would have thought more from what you see in the news and all that sort of stuff, or what my perception, my stereotype is. But you also stereotype of Germany is quite conservative country as well. So on one hand, it's a little bit unusual that it's only that low, but then again, probably just that one city over the whole of Germany, it's probably a little bit lower. But again, it's a paradox. So I come from the Philippines. Philippines is apparently 98% Catholic, and I'd say 40% of the men in the Philippines are gay, if not verging right on the edge, and quite a lot of the women as well. And it's really, really accepted here. So yeah, interesting.
A queer carnival society and a dedicated queer Christmas market. In a recent study ranking European countries on how LGBT friendly they are, Germany came in 16th out of 49 countries. The main things holding it back were instances of discrimination and hate speech. So what's it really like to live as a queer person in Germany today?
Ich bin eine weiße Frau, ich lebe nicht in Armut, mir geht's ganz gut. Viele Menschen.
So this is a polarizing topic at the moment. Can we just get over it? People are people. Let people be people. Give them their rights, give them what they need, and they should have support from everyone. being gay is not a terrible thing just because it's written in some stupid book. Okay, being gay is an act of love. There's not enough love in this world. More love.
Menschen erkennen auch gar nicht, dass ich lesbisch bin. Aber wenn du jetzt queere Menschen aus anderen Kulturen fragst, die erleben auch in Deutschland und auch in Berlin, auch in Kreuzberg durchaus Transphobie und Homophobie und Hasskriminalität.
Es gibt sehr, sehr viele Gebiete, wo es unglaublich schwer ist, offen queer zu sein, wo wir viele Diskriminierungen erfahren. Im ländlichen Raum aufzuwachsen für mich als Transperson in Deutschland war schwierig.
I would say it'd be exactly the same in every country, that it's the church. The church would be pushing against it. That's what I would imagine. Just like in every other country, the church always has to have their fingers in when you're born, when you get married, and when you die. And in between that, all they're doing is asking for money.
Es ist eine Gegend mit sehr, sehr starken Normen, gerade im Hinblick auf Geschlecht. Und da irgendwie auch nur ansatzweise rauszufallen, war keine super angenehme Erfahrung.
In der Provinz ist es oftmals schwieriger, weil man allein schon keine Communities hat, keine Gruppen, sondern meistens oder oft alleine ist. Und das ist immer ein großes Problem.
Also Deutschland ist nie Vorreiter. Das würde ich mir wünschen, dass Deutschland sich auch bei diesem Thema sich einfach mehr traut.
Zum Beispiel gibt es in Deutschland immer noch ein Blutspendeverbot für homosexuelle Männer. Es gibt kein gutes Transgesetz in Deutschland.
Es kommen immer mehr Themen auf den Tisch, die gibt es für uns in der Community schon sehr lange. Und die werden jetzt aber endlich auch mit...
So that's the biggest thing, okay? So that there, so you're not allowed to give blood. Why? What, if you're heterosexual, you can't have diseases? Yeah, it's ridiculous. But that last one, by law, you know, if you're in a relationship and you love each other, and let's say you're in a relationship for 50 years, and something happens to your partner, you don't have any rights to have a decision about what happens to your partner, and then you don't have any rights to what happens after they're dead. It's just craziness.
Mit und von Leuten diskutiert, die davon nicht direkt betroffen sind.
Did you know that one of the first outspoken advocates for gay and transgender rights was a German? Magnus Hirschfeld was a Jewish physician and sexologist who was already campaigning for legal reform in Germany around the turn of the 20th century. In particular, he fought to repeal paragraph 175, which criminalised same-sex relations between men. Although the law wasn't changed, an emerging gay scene was largely tolerated in some cities under the Weimar Republic, most notably in Berlin. This all came to an abrupt end with Hitler's rise to power. Hirschfeld's Sexual Research Institute was ransacked, his books were burnt, and he was forced into exile.
Fucking Nazis.
The Nazi Party expanded paragraph 175 and used it to arrest tens of thousands of men. Many of them were sent to concentration camps, where they were singled out with a pink triangle on their uniforms. Lesbian sex was not criminalised in Nazi Germany, but gay women were still persecuted and forced into exile. While East Germany stopped punishing same-sex relations in the late 1950s, homosexuality remained a criminal offence in both East and West Germany until the late 60s. And it took until 1994 for paragraph 175 to be completely struck from the books of a reunified Germany. There has also been more progress in recent years. Same-sex marriage was legalised in Germany in 2017, although there are still some lingering inequalities when compared to heterosexual marriage.
Okay, so same in Australia. I think it was we had a referendum on same-sex just the same year, 2017, and yeah, it was 85% to 15% or something, overwhelmingly.
Such as immediate parental rights for non-biological parents. Since 2018, intersex people in Germany have the option to register as diverse instead of male or female. And it's no longer compulsory to give your child a name that is easily identifiable as either male or female. But campaigners are still fighting to update Germany's so-called transsexual law, which...
Okay, so that's a different topic, and it's a more complicated topic than just being gay, but the trans topic is a whole different ballgame. Okay, so there's nothing saying that you can't trans into a woman or you can't trans into a man, whatever you feel comfortable with or whatever you biologically feel like. But there is a big debate whether a trans woman can play with women in sport. That's a whole different ballgame. And, you know, that's the biggest issue at the moment. Is it going too far? All right, is it one thing to ask for rights, you know, to trans from a man to a woman, and then to turn around and say that I want to compete with women, that's a whole different ball game. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that, but if you want to, leave a comment.
Which dates back to the 1980s and makes legally changing your name a long and expensive process. Then there's the controversial Alltags test or everyday test. This means that trans people have to essentially test out their new identity for at least a year before their health insurer will offer them gender-affirming procedures or hormone therapy.
Auch ich habe den Prozess durchlaufen, meinen Namen offiziell zu ändern. Und nicht nur war es teuer, es hat mich mehrere tausend Euro gekostet. Es war auch eine krass unangenehme Erfahrung, Personen, die ich nicht kenne, quasi mein gesamtes Leben offen zu legen in mehreren langen Sitzungen und über die tiefsten Details meiner Sexualität zu sprechen, damit das von einem Gericht ausgewertet werden kann und dann ein Gericht beurteilen kann, ob ich wirklich das Geschlecht habe, das ich habe.
Wir brauchen kein Sondergesetz, sondern alle Dinge, die uns betreffen, also Personenstand, Name, Ehe, Familie, all diese Dinge, dafür gibt es schon Gesetze. Man braucht nur uns da in diese Gesetze einzuarbeiten und dann alles unter dem Aspekt der Selbstbestimmung. Ich weiß, was ich bin und wer ich bin.
Okay, so again, you know, it takes time to change. Society's changed so much just since I was a kid. So, you know, these things are incremental. Society moves at the slowest person, you know, and some people aren't as good-hearted as these people. You know, how would anyone feel if I said that I want to identify as a 13-year-old girl and dress up as a 13-year-old girl and then go into the girls' toilets? Okay, so these people are good-hearted, but we need to have laws so that the 1% of bad people, we can cover that. Now, that shouldn't be a more expensive process. Okay, changing your name, whether you're me or whether you're a trans person or whatever you are, should be exactly the same. Shouldn't be thousands of euros to change your name. Okay, it should be, you know, 100 euros and give all the information and why you want to change your name and what your previous name is. Have all that on record and do it. So there shouldn't be a disparity between the prices.
Of course, a huge factor for any minority is visibility in everyday life. Some defining moments, particularly for gay visibility in Germany, have included a controversial camp film at the 1971 Berlinale Film Festival, a gay kiss on the popular TV soap Lindenstraße in 1990, and a high-ranking politician declaring in 2001, "I'm gay and that's a good thing." But when it comes to the country's national sport, football, it's notable that no male professional player has ever come out as gay during their career here. Once a year, usually in June or July, pride parties and demonstrations take over many cities across Germany. But you're more likely to hear people refer to the events as CSD or CSD. That stands for Christopher Street Day, named after the location of the 1969 New York riots, which kickstarted the global Pride movement.
Pride war immer wichtig, Pride wird immer wichtig bleiben.
Es ist ein Raum und eine Zeit im Jahr, in der man irgendwie offen und in der Öffentlichkeit präsent sein kann und existieren kann, in der man sichtbar ist, in der man demonstrieren kann, dass man ein Teil der Gesellschaft ist. Und darum ist mir das unglaublich wichtig.
Also für mich hat er nicht die große Bedeutung, der CSD. Ich finde es natürlich wunderbar, dass er sich über die Jahre, über Jahrzehnte sich so zu einem riesen Event entwickelt hat. Aber ich glaube, Politik wird nicht auf dem CSD gemacht.
CSD bleibt ein politischer Tag, nach wie vor, solange es noch Rechte gibt, die unsere LGBTIQ-Gemeinschaft nicht haben.
Auch wenn wir vor 30 Jahren viel mehr um unsere Rechte kämpfen mussten als heute, es ist immer wichtig, den Pride zu haben. Und politische Situationen können sich ja auch ganz schnell wieder ändern.
Solange eine Regenbogenfahne im Fußball immer noch ein Riesenthema ist, solange es keinen geouteten Nationalspieler gibt, solange ein 14-jähriger Junge auf dem Land noch Angst haben muss, sich zu outen, brauchen wir Pride.
Yeah, and so, yeah, that's another big issue, suicide amongst gay people. That's something that needs to be looked at. But also, you know, we have all these amazing months for women, for women's rights. We have all these initiatives for gay people. We have all these things. What about men for a change? What about men for a change? Men just are overwhelmingly disproportionate in suicide, in depression, They don't have any support from the government. Marriage equality is unbelievable. Violence against men is never talked about. When is it going to be our day to have a blue flag over the soccer field or something like that? You know, everyone deserves these rights, and I'm glad that this stuff is coming out, and it should be brought out, and it should be talked about, and it should be looked at by the whole of society, and make rules if we have to, or accept. You know, I can remember when I was a kid, I can remember William Shatner kissing a black person on Star Trek, and that was a massive deal. You know, so white, black, now it's man, girl, whatever. Okay, but you know, it takes time for cultures to change, but it's going in the right direction. Okay, so that's that one. That was a little bit deeper. So let's go back to music.
Did you know that in Germany, music is often split into two categories? Classical music comes under E for Ernste Musik, serious music. Pretty much everything else comes under U for Unterhaltungsmusik, entertainment music. You might get a whiff of snobbery there, but in any case, this shows you just how seriously Germany takes its classical music. Germany's reputation as a classical country has a lot to do with its pioneering composers and world-renowned choirs and orchestras. But another important element is financial support. The arts in general receive a lot more public funding here than they do in many other countries, and classical certainly gets a big piece of the pie. For example, public money props up some 130 professional orchestras, 80 opera houses, and many of the country's classical music festivals. So does that mean all Germans are classical connoisseurs?
That's always a debate, particularly in Western countries, about how much money to spend on the arts. I'm not an artist myself. I'm no good at music, I'm no good at painting, I'm no good at things, but I can see why as a culture and as a people you should spend money on art. Okay, if you have a look at all the beautiful things in the world, they're all created by artistic people. If you listen to all the great music, they're all created by artistic people. So, you know, and you know, if you can think of, I can just see up here we've got Bach and Beethoven. Think of all that wonderful music over the time, over the last 350 years. How many people have listened to those songs? How many situations have changed, moved, happened, born, death with that music? So yeah, I'm a big believer in government support for art, and you know, I don't like all art, but you take the greater good, even if you get the bad stuff too.
Ich habe keine Ahnung.
Ich spiele Cello, aber so als Hobby nur.
Ich habe selber mal im Chor gesungen.
Ich singe im Kirchenchor bei uns.
Ich hatte das Glück, eine musikalische Ausbildung genießen zu dürfen, schon sehr früh als Kind. Bin dann aber doch nicht in die musikalische, sondern mehr in die mathematische Richtung gegangen. Aber das tat mir sicherlich auch ganz gut.
He sounds Chinese or Japanese. I started off in music and then went to mathematics.
Ich habe eigentlich keinen richtigen Zug.
This lovely old lady reminds me of my grandmother.
Ich höre keine klassische Musik und habe auch gar keinen Bezug dazu.
Ich glaube, es gibt in den meisten Kindergärten auch so frühkindliche Musikerziehung. Aber ich glaube, es ist natürlich auch einfacher, wenn die Eltern schon Zugang dazu hatten.
Da haben wir, glaube ich, beide große Freude dran. Aber ich habe auf jeden Fall nicht das Talent, die Musik selbst zu machen. Ich habe eher das Talent, mir das anzuhören.
So, who do you reckon has earned a spot on the German Classical Composer Walk of Fame? There's Handel, Brahms, Wagner, Schumann, Mendelssohn. Way back in the Middle Ages, a multi-talented nun named Hildegard von Bingen was already showing that composing was not just a man's game. But many female composers like Clara Schumann and Fanny Mendelssohn ended up being overshadowed by their brothers or husbands. You might be shouting at...
That happened a lot. That's the same with Marie Curie and a lot of women scientists. They didn't get credit because their husbands took all their work.
The screen that I've missed too.
Not because they wanted to, because that's the only way that they could get published. It wasn't the husband's fault, it was just the society at the time.
Very very important names off the list. These two are probably the most famous German composers of all time, Johann Sebastian Bach and Ludwig van Beethoven. The latter was born in the 18th century in this house in Bonn. It's now a museum dedicated to him. He's seen as a trailblazer of music from the Romantic era, and he revolutionized symphonic music with unconventional rhythms and harmonies. And all this despite starting to go deaf in his early 20s. His legacy...
Oh, okay. I thought he was deaf at 5. I thought he was a child prodigy and he was deaf at 5. I watched a movie, which is not factual. But yeah, they made it out that he was a child prodigy that was being harked all over Europe, a bit like Michael Jackson. But they made out in the movie that he was deaf at 5. Okay, so early 20s, but still an amazing effort to write those pieces of music when you're going deaf.
is unquestionable. No symphony
Let alone if you're not deaf.
in history has been played more times than Beethoven's Ninth. But before Beethoven came Bach. He was born in Eisenach in the mid-17th century and eventually came to Leipzig to lead the Thomaner.
I'll just tell you a quick story. I forget where it was in Scotland, but I went to a church in Scotland, and it was a 11th century church, and they had an altar stone where everyone who got married in the parish would lean down on that stone. And the stone was so worn away from people being married at that stone that it was nearly gone. So many knees had been on that stone, and so many people had been married at that nearly worn away stone. And if you just think about these songs, how many people in the world have been married to that music?
The famous boys' choir here at the Thomaskirche. The Baroque composer is known as the master of polyphonic music, where each part is equally important and has its own melody. There are Bach organizations, choirs and festivals all over the world. So why has his work stood the test of time?
Das Phänomen, dass Bach immer noch gespielt wird und so viel gespielt wird wie noch nie zuvor, liegt daran, dass es ihm offensichtlich gelungen ist, vor 300 Jahren eine Tonsprache zu finden, die Menschen über alle kulturellen, religiösen, zeitlichen Grenzen hinweg anspricht. Und natürlich hat er solche Stücke wie die Kunst der Fuge, die wirklich abgespaceder, hochintellektueller Kontrapunkt sind, vielleicht eher für die Kenner geschrieben. Aber seine Kantaten, die musikalische Predigten im Gottesdienst waren, die hat er für Leute jeden Geschmacks komponiert. Ich glaube, der wahre Bach, der ist ungestüm, der ist voller Kreativität. Bachs Musik ist im gewissen Sinne Rock'n'Roll. Also da geht die Post ab, man muss sich nur drauf einlassen.
In Germany, classical music isn't only...
So we just go back and have a look at that. So talk about a legend in your own time. So imagine a time before photography, and you actually had to have a portrait of yourself so that you could be remembered in history. So anybody in history that's got a portrait about themselves did something in their lifetimes.
In Germany, classical music isn't only a cultural matter, it's often been used for political purposes too. In the late 1800s, Kaiser Wilhelm I recognized the benefits of harnessing the influence that successful German composers were having abroad. This idea would later be taken up with great enthusiasm by the Nazis, who used classical music and orchestras to bolster Nazi Germany's image and to boost the morale of German troops.
Fucking Nazis.
Beethoven's music in particular has continued to play its part in politics. The instrumental version of Ode to Joy, the last movement of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, is the official anthem of the European Union. The same piece of music has been used by groups from across the political spectrum all around the world, from white rulers in Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, in the 1970s, to student protesters on China's Tiananmen Square in 1989. But where is German classical music headed today? The country still produces and attracts the creme de la creme of orchestras, performers and conductors. It supports innovation in the genre with project funding and festivals specialising in...
Okay, so that's interesting. So she's from Cologne, and she's got a Steinway and Sons, which is a German-American company. So that's interesting to go back all the way back to go from Germany to New York, start up a really amazing piano company, and then work all your way back. Yeah, that's interesting.
In contemporary and new music. There are also 24 dedicated music colleges in Germany. Right now, we're in the largest one in Cologne. So let's talk to the musicians of the future about the future of German classical music.
Ist eine sehr spannende Zeit. Ist nicht leicht, ist wirklich nicht leicht als klassischer Musiker, selbst in Deutschland.
Es wird eben auch viel die Verknüpfung mit anderen Kunstformen gesucht, mit anderen Musikformen und damit auch mit einem anderen Publikum.
Heute gibt es zum einen das große Thema, dass man alte Musik auf authentische Weise wieder neu interpretiert.
Ich glaube, hier gibt es trotz der hohen Professionalität sehr viel Platz zum Experimentieren.
Ich glaube, es geht jetzt auch gerade nach der Corona-Zeit wieder viel mehr darum zu schauen, okay, was will die Gesellschaft eigentlich und wie können wir als Kunst- und Kulturschaffende eben darauf reagieren.
This was another request from Meet the Germans viewers, so I hope we did the topic justice. Let me know what you think about Germany's classical past, present and future.
I'd love to hear, like, you know, because we have groups that do classical music and you also have groups that do medieval music. I'd love to hear like a medieval composed music. That'd be interesting. Anyway, I like that one. Okay, yeah, and a quick story in Australia with graffiti on bus stations. A lot of councils in Australia actually have speakers on top of the bus stations and they play classical music to keep the teenagers away so that they don't put the graffiti on the bus stations. Alright, and our last one was actually not recommended by anyone except for my wife, because my wife is a big reader of books, and I was telling her about that I'm doing a series on Germany at the moment on my YouTube channel, and she started telling me some stories about the Brothers Grimm. So I found this one from Meet the Germans, which is interesting, and we'll see, because I think my wife might actually know a little bit more about this because she reads a book a day.
Once upon a time there was a prince who fell in love with a beautiful mystery girl who left a shoe at his party. The girl's evil stepsisters want the prince for themselves, so they make the shoe fit by chopping off bits of their own feet. Luckily, the prince is not fooled and he finds his true love, Cinderella. At the wedding, the evil stepsisters have their eyes pecked out by birds. The Brothers Grimm put a gory twist on European folklore back in the 19th century. Thanks to them and writers like Goethe and Schiller, Germany has long been known as the land of poets and thinkers. But is it a land of book lovers? According to
So, so the Brothers Grimm, so Grimm in English, I'm sure it's the same in German, is terrible or things that are bad, horrible. So I wonder whether they used their name. Was that actually their last name? If you know, put that in the comments for me. Was it actually their real name, or was it an advertising thing that they changed their name to Grimm to make their stories more spooky? Or did it go the other way, that now the word grim means horrible or grotesque because of the Brothers Grimm, because of their stories? Or is it just one of those interesting names that, I forget what they call it, when people have a last name and then they're associated with something. So the Brothers Grimm are associated with grotesque stories, or, you know, Mr. Doctor became the person who invented, you know, the blood test or something like that. You know, whether, I forget, is it onomatopoeia or something like that? But anyway.
For a recent survey, Germans read less than people in countries such as Brazil, Russia, Italy and China. But Germany does boast Nobel Prize winners for literature and the biggest book fair in the world. One German airline even offers a free extra kilo of luggage in summer just for books. An avid reader in Germany is known as a bookworm, a book fool, or rather charmingly, a reading rat. So, let's see how well these reading rats know their books. Wovon gibt es in Deutschland mehr? Brauereien oder Bibliotheken?
Ich glaube Brauereien.
Ich würde sagen auch Brauereien, ja.
Bibliotheken, hoffe ich doch sehr.
Ganz sicher Bibliotheken.
Wer hat Der Tod in Venedig geschrieben?
Das war doch dieser Krimi-Autor, oder?
Mann.
Deutschland verkauft die meisten Buchlizenzen an welches Land?
Schwierig. USA?
Ich habe
Überhaupt gar keine Ahnung.
Holland.
Die Schweiz? Frankreich?
China?
China? Wow, das hätte ich nicht gedacht.
Wer reitet so spät durch Nacht und Wind?
Mir liegt auf der Zunge.
Es ist der Vater mit seinem Kind.
Es ist der Vater.
Mit seinem Kind.
Ja, genau, richtig. Das Gedicht hieß Erlkönig.
Das war Schiller.
Der andere.
Dann war es Goethe. Entschuldigung.
Fun fact, many countries write the titles on their book spines from top to bottom, but in Germany, they're usually written from bottom to top. So when a German book is cover up on the coffee table, the title is upside down on the spine. Books can be pretty pricey here, because all shops have to sell new releases at exactly the same price. The idea is to protect independent bookshops and to ensure that a diverse range of books gets published. The bestsellers, all sold at full price, essentially help finance the more niche books and works by unknown authors. The book has been rather symbolic at various stages in Germany's history. German scholar Johannes Gutenberg revolutionized reading in the 15th century with his mechanical printing press that used movable metal type. He soon got to work making the first printed copies of the Bible. 500 years later, books that weren't approved of by the Nazis were
Fucking Nazis.
being tossed onto bonfires across Germany. The images chillingly recalled the words of German writer Heinrich Heine, "Where books are burned, people will also be burned." Today's German National Library is a sign of German reunification, having brought together existing institutions from East and West Germany. It houses some 36 million items, and anyone who publishes anything in Germany is required by law to send 2 copies to the National Library. Talking of libraries,
Ich glaube schon, dass die Deutschen eine ganz besondere Beziehung zu ihren Büchern haben und auch eben zur Bibliothek als Ort, wo sie eben diese Bücher auch finden können und wo sie zunehmend eben auch weitere Angebote in Anspruch nehmen können, die auch den Wert des Buches dann steigern.
So, what do the Germans like to read? There are a few regulars in the bestseller list. The dictionary, the Bible, anything by or about the Pope. But there are sometimes a few surprises. Ready for story time? How does pooping work? Vomiting. Or how about a few facts about feces? Julia Ender's Darm mit Charme, literally charming bowels, is a deep dive into the human digestive tract. And it was a runaway success in Germany. One genre that often dominates the fiction charts here is the krimi, or crime thriller. These come with gloomy covers and ominous titles like The Search, The Package, The Corpse in the Beach Basket.
That was one of the best things about Netflix, is that we actually started seeing some European crime dramas and a couple of, movies from overseas that we haven't ever seen before. So yeah, there was a couple of good German thrillers and crime dramas. Yeah, that was the best thing about Netflix.
Many books that make it big in Germany are translations from other languages, like Harry Potter, which has sold more than 33 million copies in German. A Muggle is a Muggel, Buckbeak is Seidenschnabel, and Fluffy the three-headed dog is called... Fluffy. German books don't always make it onto the global market, but there have been some resounding export successes, like Michael Ender's Never-Ending Story, or Bernhard Schlink's The Reader. And often dubbed the J.K. Rowling of Germany, Cornelia Funke has captured imaginations worldwide with her Inkwell series, about a little girl who loves to read. There was another reason why Meggie took her books whenever they went away. They were her home when she was somewhere strange. They were familiar voices, friends that never quarrelled with her.
Alright, there we go. So there's part 2 of Meet the Germans. So yeah, all of them really interesting. So I like doing these videos. I like learning new things about Germany. So like I said, if you like this series, please like and subscribe. I'll also, like I said, I'll give you a couple of links to other subscribers of my channel, German people, particularly the one with the music, and we will see you later. Auf Wiedersehen.